For a decade, this company was my world. I was obsessed with profit margins, market share, you name it. The stock price was my daily prayer, the quarterly reports my Bible. From my perch on the 50th floor, the world looked simple, logical, and profitable. I thought I knew every gear in the machine I'd built. I was dead wrong. So, I went undercover in one of my own stores. This wasn't for some cheap reality show, it was for a dose of actual reality. I threw on a faded baseball cap and some worn-out jeans, trying to see the company not through the gloss of a PowerPoint, but through the eyes of the people who were its heartbeat. I was looking for inefficiencies, for ways to optimize, to make the machine run even smoother. What I found instead was a man. A janitor, hidden away in a supply closet, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. In that dim, quiet moment, seeing one of my own employees breaking down, I realized I knew nothing at all. The truth I'd uncover over the next 48 hours wasn't some simple operational flaw. It was a sickness, a poison that had been quietly spreading in the shadows of my success, and it was destroying lives. Section 1, The Facade of Success. My name is Marcus Thompson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Aura Retail. If you've spent time in any major city, you've seen our stores. They're the sleek, modern temples of convenience, selling everything from high-end tech to organic apples. By every metric Wall Street cares about, we were a massive success. And for a black man who started with nothing but a dream and a loan from his grandma, that success felt like everything. It was my armor. I'd built Aura from a single shop into a national powerhouse. I was ruthless, focused, and I demanded nothing less than excellence. My days were a blur of meetings, data analysis, and strategic plans. I could tell you the inventory turnover for every location, the sales per square foot, anything. I had charts for my charts. What I didn't have, I was starting to understand, was a real connection. The company had gotten so big that the people on the front lines had become abstractions, headcounts, labor costs, just numbers on a spreadsheet. That's what brought me here, walking the polished floors of store 1138, a store I hadn't set foot in for years. The official story was a market immersion program, a fancy way of saying I was getting out of the office. The real reason? A hollow feeling, a sense that the reports from my managers were too perfect. They were telling me what I wanted to hear. I wanted the raw, unfiltered truth. I wanted to see what really happened when the boss wasn't around. So I became Mark, a new transfer. The disguise was just a hat pulled low and some plain clothes, but the change was jarring. For the first time in 15 years, I was completely invisible. Employees hurried past me. Shoppers cut me off with their carts. I wasn't Marcus Thompson, the billionaire CEO. I was just part of the scenery. It was eye-opening. I saw the exhaustion in a cashier's eyes as she forced another smile. I saw the worn-out soles of a stalker's shoes. I felt the relentless pace, the constant pressure to keep moving. The store, so calm and organized on the surface, felt like a pressure cooker from the inside. But still, everything seemed fine. Productive. Efficient. It was the perfect facade. And then I heard it, a muffled sound, almost lost in the hum of the freezers. The sound of human pain, coming from a small door marked, supply closet. Section 2, the first crack in the armor. Curiosity, or maybe some long-buried instinct, pulled me toward that door. I pushed it open. The closet was cramped, smelling of disinfectant. And there, sitting on an overturned bucket, was a man in a janitor's uniform. He was older, maybe late 50s, with graying hair and hands that told a story of a long life of hard work. His back was to me, but I could see his shoulders trembling. He was trying to cry without anyone hearing. He heard the creak of the door and stiffened, quickly wiping his eyes on his sleeve like he'd been caught doing something wrong. "Sorry," he mumbled, not looking up. "Just, taking a second." The CEO in me wanted to be efficient. Ask what's wrong, point him to HR, move on. But looking at this man, my employee, that felt cruel. The disguise had given me more than just anonymity, it gave me the freedom to be human. I wasn't a boss. I was just Mark. "Hey, man, you alright?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. He flinched, like he was expecting a lecture. "I'm fine," he said, the lie we all tell. "Just, allergies." I knew better. Allergies don't break a man's spirit like that. I leaned against the doorframe, giving him a little space. "Tough day." He finally looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed and filled with a kind of weary surrender that hit me right in the chest. He must have seen my scuffed boots and plain clothes and figured I was just another cog in the machine like him. He let out a long, shaky breath. "You have no idea," he whispered. His name, according to the faded tag on his uniform, was Samuel. I didn't push. I just waited. The silence in that tiny closet felt more honest than any conversation I'd had in my boardroom. After a moment, he spoke again, his voice cracking. "My wife, she's sick. Real sick. Needs surgery." He gestured down at his uniform. "I need this job. I need the insurance. But, they're making it impossible." "They?" I asked gently. He glanced nervously down the hall, afraid of being overheard. "The manager. Mr. Davies. He's always on me. Nothing's ever good enough. Today, he told me he was reviewing my contract." That one word, contract, felt wrong. Aura didn't use contracts for janitors. They were full employees, with benefits, a pension, the whole deal. It was something I was proud of. Samuel seemed to read my confusion. "It's different," he said, looking down at his worn hands. "Not like the other folks here." He said if my performance didn't get better, he'd have to terminate it. "And the insurance goes with it." The words hung there in the stale air. A man's wife needed surgery, and his job was being held over his head because of a different contract. This wasn't just a tough manager. This was a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I'd built. The polished reports I read never mentioned special contracts or managers holding a sick woman's health for ransom. For the first time, a cold dread started to creep in. Samuel's tears weren't just about sadness, they were about a deep, paralyzing terror. And his words, "his contract is different," became the first thread I had to pull. Section 3, the investigation begins. I left Samuel with a few clumsy words of encouragement that felt hollow and useless. Walking back onto the sales floor, everything looked different. The bright, clean aisles felt cold and sterile. The cheerful music sounded mocking. My mission had changed. I wasn't a CEO looking for inefficiencies anymore. I was a detective at a crime scene of my own making. My 48-hour clock was ticking. For the rest of the day, I just watched and listened. I made myself busy, stocking shelves and grabbing carts, but my eyes were on the store's manager, Alan Davies. He moved through the store like a shark, a man with a sharp suit and a smile that never touched his eyes. Whenever he got close, employees would stiffen up, their faces becoming blank masks. I saw him tear into a young cashier, Jessica, a kid who couldn't have been more than 19, over a $3 shortage in her drawer. He didn't pull her aside. He did it right there at the register, his voice low but sharp, designed to humiliate. "Maybe if you spent less time daydreaming, you could do simple math, Jessica," he sneered before walking away. The girl's face was beet red, her eyes shining with tears she refused to let fall. Later, I was in the stockroom and started talking with an older guy named George. Pretending to be the nervous new guy, I asked him how to stay on the manager's good side. George let out a short, bitter laugh. "Good side? There is no good side. There's the side that gets you hours, and the side that gets them cut. You keep your head down, do your work, and you never, ever ask questions." "What kind of questions?" I asked. He glanced around. Questions about your check. About why some people get all the overtime and others get sent home. About why Samuel the janitor is on some weird contract nobody's ever heard of. He lowered his voice. Listen, kid. This place, it's not right. Davies runs it like his own little kingdom. He has his favorites, and the rest of us, we're disposable. It was all starting to connect. The fear. The humiliation. The whispers about pay and hours. And that damn contract. It all pointed to one man, Alan Davies. But a single toxic manager was a problem I could fix with a single phone call. What scared me was the system that let him get away with it. Where was HR? Why weren't there any complaints? Why were the regional managers' reports glowing? That night, alone in my generic hotel room, I felt a rage I hadn't felt in years. It was a cold fury, aimed not just at Davies, but at myself. I had built a company so big and so focused on the bottom line that I'd created pockets of darkness where monsters could thrive. I had trusted the system, and the system was rotten. I had to go back. I needed more than just whispers and sad stories. I needed proof. I had to understand how deep the rot went before I could cut it out. This was no longer about observation. This was about gathering evidence. Day 2 was all about one thing, that contract. I had to know how Davies was isolating Samuel and who else was caught in his web. My disguise as a floor worker got me into the one place a CEO could never go unnoticed, the employee break room. It was a sad, windowless room, but it had the employee computer. My chance came when I saw an admin worker named Maria. I'd seen Davies talk down to her earlier. She looked completely stressed out. I approached her, playing the part of Mark the new guy. "Excuse me," I said, faking confusion. "I'm trying to find the full-time benefits summary. My last store had it online." Maria gave me a tired smile. "Yeah, it should be on the HR portal. Good luck getting it to load. And make sure you're looking at the right one. Not everyone gets the same deal here." There it was again. That hint. "What do you mean?" I asked, playing dumb. She chewed on her lip, then seemed to decide I was safe to talk to. "It's some of the service staff, like the janitors. They aren't technically Aura employees. They're hired through a third-party contractor. Efficient Staffing Solutions, or something." A chill went right through me. Aura has a strict no-contractor policy for core staff. I wrote that rule myself to stop exactly this kind of exploitation. "So they don't get our benefits?" I asked, my voice tight. "Nope," she whispered. "Lower pay, no sick days, and the insurance is a joke. Davies brought them in 2 years ago. Said it was a corporate pilot program to cut costs. We all knew it was garbage, but who's gonna argue with him?" I thanked her, my mind racing. A pilot program I never approved. A contractor I'd never heard of. But now I had a name, Efficient Staffing Solutions. That night, the CEO was back in business. Using my secure laptop, I dove into the corporate records. It didn't take long to find payments to Efficient Staffing Solutions, disguised as external maintenance. But the real gut punch came when I searched for the contractor itself. It was a shell corporation. No other clients, just a P.O. box. And the owner? A woman named Eleanor Davies. A quick search confirmed my sickest suspicion, Alan Davies' wife. The whole scam was laid bare. Davies had created a fake company, had us pay his wife's company with Aura's money, and then hired people through it. He was skimming a fortune off the top while paying workers a fraction of what they deserved. He wasn't just a bully, he was a thief. He had created a shadow workforce inside my own company, exploiting the most vulnerable people for personal gain. This was why Samuel was so terrified. His contract wasn't with Aura Retail. It was with his manager's fake company. Davies had absolute power over him. He could fire him for no reason, with no severance, and no one to turn to, because technically, Samuel didn't work for me. I leaned back, the laptop screen glowing in the dark room. The scale of the deceit was stunning. This wasn't just one bad manager, this was systemic fraud. It required fake reports, doctored payrolls, and a culture of fear so deep that no one dared to speak up. And I had let it happen. My focus on the big picture, on the numbers, had created the perfect blind spot for this cancer to grow. I had rewarded Davies for his store's high margins. I had rewarded him for his cruelty and his theft. I knew what I had to do. The old playbook had to be burned. This wasn't a job for HR or an email. This required a reckoning. And I had to deliver it myself. Section 5, the confrontation the next morning. I didn't wear the baseball cap. I put on the custom-tailored navy suit I'd traveled in. When I walked through the doors of store 1138, I wasn't Mark anymore. I was Marcus Thompson, CEO. And in an instant, everyone knew it. The morning chatter died. Jessica, the cashier, froze. George, the stalker, stopped his pallet jack mid-aisle, his eyes wide. A wave of whispers spread through the store as people realized the guy they'd been ignoring for 2 days was the name on the front of the building. I walked straight to Alan Davies's glass office. He was on the phone, laughing. He looked up, saw me, and his face cycled through confusion, recognition, and then dawning, abject horror. He fumbled the phone, mumbled a goodbye, and shot up from his chair. "Mr. Thompson," he stammered. "What a surprise. I had no idea you were visiting." "I know," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. That was the point. "Mr. Davies, I want you to call an all-staff meeting. In the main aisle. Right now." Panic flared in his eyes. "Now." "But sir, the store is open, we have customers, now," I repeated. It wasn't a request. Minutes later, the staff was gathered in the main aisle, a nervous, confused crowd. I saw Samuel near the back, looking completely bewildered. "Samuel," I called out, my voice echoing in the quiet store. "Could you please come up here and stand with me?" A murmur went through the staff as the old janitor shuffled forward, terrified. I put a hand on his shoulder to let him know he was safe. Then I turned my full attention to Davies. "For the past 2 days, I've been working here alongside you. I've stocked shelves, I've gathered carts, and I've listened. And I am horrified by what I've learned." I stared directly at Davies, whose face was now a sickly gray. "I learned this store isn't run like part of the Aura family. It's run like a personal kingdom, built on fear." I let that hang in the air. I also learned about a company called Efficient Staffing Solutions. Davies flinched as if I'd hit him. "I learned that this fraudulent company, owned by your wife, Mr. Davies, has been used to exploit our most vulnerable employees. To deny them the pay, the benefits, and the dignity that every single person who works for this company deserves. I learned that you have been stealing from this company and from your own staff." There was a collective gasp. Samuel looked at me, a flicker of hope finally dawning in his eyes. "You're lying." Davies sputtered. "This is slander. You have no proof." "Proof?" I said, my voice like ice. "I have the incorporation documents for your shell company. I have the falsified invoices you submitted. And most importantly," I said, looking out at the crowd, "I have the people you terrorized." I turned back to the staff. "Mr. Davies's employment with Aura Retail is terminated, effective immediately. He will be escorted from the premises. And I assure you, we will be pursuing criminal charges for fraud." A wave of relief washed over the employees. It was a physical thing, a collective exhale from people who had been holding their breath for years. Davies just stood there, his little kingdom crumbling around him in the middle of a grocery aisle. Section 6. The aftermath and rebuilding. With Davies gone, the staff just looked at me with a fragile, uncertain hope. This was the moment that mattered. Firing a villain is easy. Rebuilding trust is hard. I looked at them all, at Samuel beside me, at Jessica, at George. I want to apologize, I said, and I meant it more than any words I'd ever spoken in a boardroom. I'm the CEO, and the failure of leadership that let this happen is my failure. I was so focused on the numbers that I forgot the people. I promise you, that will never happen again. Then, I turned to Samuel. Samuel, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You are a full, permanent employee of Aura Retail, effective immediately. We are calculating 2 years of back pay you are owed, plus a substantial raise. Your wife's surgery and all her medical bills will be covered, in full, by the company. Your family. We take care of our family. Tears streamed down Samuel's face, but for the first time, they were tears of relief. He just nodded, his hand gripping my arm. I addressed the rest of the staff. Every employee on one of these fake contracts will be made a full-time Aura employee with full benefits and back pay. We are launching a company-wide audit of every single store. We're setting up a new, truly anonymous whistleblower hotline that goes directly to my office. And I will be spending 1 week of every month working on the floor, in our stores, so I never lose touch again. I was burning the old playbook and writing a new one. This one would be built on empathy and justice. CTA. This story is a powerful reminder that behind every logo and every sales report, there are human beings. Their struggles and their dignity are the true measure of a company's worth. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. And let us know in the comments, what do you think makes a truly great leader? Conclusion. In the weeks that followed, we began a painful but necessary transformation at Aura Retail. Firing Davies wasn't the end, it was the start. We found similar abuses in other stores, rooted out by the new systems we put in place. The culture slowly started to shift from fear to accountability. My undercover journey began as a business trip, but it became a lesson in humanity. I learned that real leadership isn't about reading reports from a corner office. It's about walking the floor, listening to the whispers, and seeing the truth in a good man's tears. The billionaire CEO had to become invisible to truly see his own company. He had to face the darkness that grew in his own shadow to finally bring it into the light. What happened in store 1138 wasn't just about a corrupt manager getting what he deserved. It was about a promise renewed, a promise that people will always be more important than profits.